So we're broadcasting. Joy, you had a comment about this issue 115, a survey of attendance of sessions collaboration summit. So it looks like there is, well, check it out, because they're asking what you're going to attend so they can better plan space. So, and I'll paste the link. Okay, so the session at Collaborator Summit number 229. It looks like there is a proposed agenda, which looks good.
Yeah, I think Kelvin was gonna look at reviewing that to see and adding to it, but that was a first cut.
Yeah, I need to open it first.
Okay, and this is on October 12th, which is a Friday, is that right? Shitty time, huh? 3:30.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Okay.
Now there is some like I know there were like that survey that you mentioned, Joey. I think that was partially to see where people and which sessions people were going to, figure out what size rooms. I think there might have some effect on the schedule, but when I looked a while back, that was where we were scheduled.
Okay. Okay, so then I kind of feel like this is the kind of thing that we can sort of flesh out the details, like on Thursday and Friday, just corral people and be like, hey, you know, what's the sort of, because I kind of feel like some of these bullets just need fleshed out a little bit, right? And just to make sure we steer the conversation in the right way, like that is the open questions, what do we want to get out of the conversation? And so, but I kind of feel like that can happen on, you know, while people are up there. Is that fair? Is that anything anybody should be stressing over right now?
Just to be clear, it's 90 minutes?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
You know, I'd say if there's things people really want on the agenda and specific topics that people say, hey, it's a great thing to cover when we're face-to-face, getting those in the agenda and up front would be good. Otherwise, you know, I think we can see based on the people who are there what the interest is to go through. But if there's certain things that we really do want to cover, then having those up front is going to be better. And trying to do it at the conference, like we might get a little bit of that, but it's pretty tough to get people. And so if it's important, we should try and do it beforehand.
Okay, well, is there anything that anybody thinks should be added there now? And go ahead, sorry.
Okay, I would be happy if we could talk about postmortem diagnosis in the future. So that's great that we have LL node now and we can analyze code dumps, but with promises potentially and async hooks, probably it's not the future, or this is something that I don't know. So it would be nice a little bit talk about that, which direction we are expecting from postmortem debugging.
So I think there's postmortem with promises and postmortem analysis are both on there. Is that something, is there something else?
No, no. I think the current agenda looks good in terms of this.
I mean, maybe what you're suggesting is that we want to have in the working sessions post-mortem with promises. I just updated to add that as like, as something specific that if we get to that point, say, okay, let's dive into some details. That's when you'd like to have on the priority list.
It would be great to have a direction about what what we think in Node.js would be useful in the future. So is it something like, is it the code dump analysis the future for Node.js, or is something different? So it would be nice to agree about this and come up with some plans how we can achieve that future.
Do you have any ideas of alternatives?
Async hooks would be an alternative, but it seems to be that we completely stuck with the performance overhead. So I don't have a really good idea now, but it can be, for example, a plan that we want to use the async hooks, so we have to fix the performance issues around that. That could be one potential issue, but I don't have anything concrete.
So what exactly, when you say postmortem with promises, what exactly do you mean?
Potentially, we could use async hooks to collect some information, which wouldn't be that detailed than with code dumps, but at least having some kind of postmortem debugging opportunity. But really, I don't have anything concrete. Just.
But what you want to accomplish is you want to say, given a core dump, show me all of the promises and their promise chains.
It's more like I would be interested to see the current state of the process when it was crashing, and because with promises we cannot be sure that the state doesn't change between we are crashing the process or not. So
right.
The ability to being able to see what was a variable there. Yep, mainly this.
Because I mean, I think that the use case you're talking about is an unhandled exception results in a unhandled rejected promise.
Yes, that's correct. Sorry, I wasn't very.
And in that case, ideally, what we'd want is a core dump to occur, or maybe a node report or some sort of set of diagnostics information. But that's where we've been challenged. I haven't come up with any alternatives. The only thought I did have was, and I don't know. Anyway, the only thought I'd had was like, if we could be smart enough to learn about unhandled rejections in that case, like we might be able to figure it out, but it's too late to get a core dump, that it was unhandled and we wanted to have one. Can we be smart enough so that the second time that happens, we actually generate a core dump?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that would still use LO. Sorry, go ahead.
At the moment, V8 was pushing something out to actually have stack traces for async await, and that's with zero cost overhead. So we are going to get these in general, and from then on, debugging async await is going to be easier. It's also going to happen for promise all and promise raise. It's not going to happen for promise then or promise reject. But this would be possible, but it would not mean zero cost overhead. However, it should be possible to ask the V8 team to maybe add a flag or so it would activate that as well.
But those stack traces aren't necessarily like, we'd still need to know, like, that might play into if you could use the stack trace to figure out, okay, it's the same stack trace as the one where we wished we'd had a core dump the first time but didn't get one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we don't have to go into the weeds now. It's more like it seems to be there some interest around this topic. So I would be happy if we can talk about how we want to solve this in the future.
Yeah, I think like for me, the thing that would be helpful there is like getting to some level of precision about what we want to be able to answer in those cases. So for example, it's like if we say, I have a unhandled rejection, or I have a promise that was rejected and there was no handlers on it and the thing got GC'd, then I want information about the promise chain or something along those lines to help diagnose the problem. And I think that would help clarify sort of what bits of information are necessary, right? Because I'm still not totally clear what we're trying to answer. Maybe it's just me. Possible.
Recently, I had a meeting with Young, and based on that conversation, it seems to be that for specific promise use cases, so detecting when we have an unhandled rejection or doing something when we are trying to resolve a promise twice, it seems to be that now there are solutions in a Node.js space, like we have some event emitters for hooks, or we are handling those edge cases. So for seems to be that the promise use cases, the new direction is that it's not async hooks. We are just adding specific features to the Node.js core that can handle these edge cases or can notify the user. So I think this is also something that we could agree that is this the new direction, and we don't want to build on async hooks, or it's still the dream that one day we will have async hooks and we will use those. I know it's not completely related to the postmortem debugging. Just this is also something that I see that we are thinking about lots of different solutions. People are working on those solutions, but I don't feel that we have an alignment that which is the way that we would like to pursue in the future.
Okay. Yeah, and I thought that there was some, I don't know what the right word is, controversy about behavior when there are unhandled rejections. Like I know that I get like my inbox is kind of a disaster, but I know that I see a lot of mails from GitHub of people talking about what we should be doing with unhandled rejections, and there's been some different. I don't know. It sounds like people.
It's a long running discussion because, like, some people feel strongly we shouldn't throw or cause a core dump because it would break. Like it's not spec compliant, would break some code that's perfectly within the spec. Other people are happy to actually do that because it would provide more information. And I don't think there's any clear answer. Like there's no good right answer, right? Which makes it difficult for people to coalesce on one thing.
I agree. I think we should have a consensus about this and have a roadmap, because, for example, Schema contributes for Netflix, and we can ask them to implement these features, but until we don't have alignment, we can't really know what to contribute on this field, honestly.
So there is also, I thought, I recall seeing something that there was some debugging promise working group, and there's some overlap with that. So, and I thought at one point these sessions were scheduled at the same time. Shit. I just got a presidential text alert. Oh shit, I'm the lucky one. Sorry, scared me. I totally lost my train of thought. What was I even?
Yeah, you were talking about that there was a session on debugging with promises in the summit as well.
Yeah, when is that?
It's conflicting with the diagnostic group session.
So,
yeah, that doesn't make sense because it's kind of a subset. But
yes.
Okay, so we should resolve that.
Somebody got to volunteer to email Matteo on that one. Who is the champions for those two sessions?
I'm the champion for Promise one, so I can do that. Okay,
great, thanks. It may be difficult, like it's really hard to accommodate everybody, but
okay. Yeah, and then do we, as part of this, do we want to find like a champion for each of these bullets to kind of drive through whatever the discussion needs to be?
I think it would make sense.
Okay.
That would be great. You mean like beforehand or going forward?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like if we're going to have a meeting at the Collab Summit and we're saying like, hey, we've got these 5 or 6 bullet points that we want to talk about. You know, it's like at some point, I think it's like we probably need to scope things down in terms of, you know, like, I mean, given the time frame, we've got 90 minutes. And there's
so there's kind of like two sides to it. One was, and I think it might have been Ali suggested that we go through what we're working on to try and encourage new participants.
Uh-huh.
So there's sort of, if you've got new people in the room and you want to like give them a snapshot of what's going on and get them encouraged to join in, it might be worthwhile going through at a more surface level. And then as soon as the sort of working sessions was the second part, like as soon as you say, okay, now we're going to go into really nitty gritty, then you really do need somebody who's going to lead that particular session, right?
Okay, so the things that we think we're going to go nitty gritty on are what exactly? The postmortem with promises?
I think that's what we have in the list right now, right? We've got we added in the async terminology.
Yep.
And postmortem with promises are the two that we've discussed adding to that list so far.
Okay. So then what effectively we need is somebody to kind of walk through just kind of like a quick summary of all of these bullets up top, and then we can dive deep on both the async terminology and then the postmortem stuff, right? And then, Peter, did you want to drive the deep dive with the postmortem and promises?
Yes, I can. Okay. Also, I see another agenda item, the postmortem analysis. Is it more like from user experience perspective, or what does it include?
You mean the summit?
No, there's a bullet. You say there's a bullet postmortem analysis, right?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
It seems like that first bullet point that Michael posted is like encompasses like that whole list of just summaries, right, of things that we're working on, right?
Right. So the first one is like the goals. So that sort of just is to where we're trying to get to, current initiatives. And, you know, I had included under the current initiatives the postmortem with promises because of the subgroup we have going there.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know how many people knows, but Matthäus will hold a workshop about LL Node. And it seems to be that more than 60 people is interested. So probably we can collect some good feedback after that work group. I don't know was there any discussion around that, but I think it would be useful to send out a survey or find a way to collect some feedback from that 60 people who is interested in postmortem debugging.
That's a very good idea. I think also encourage those people to come to the Collaborator Summit, the diagnostic session at the Collaborator Summit.
Okay, then
there may be additional people to volunteer too.
Okay, that's a good idea. I will let Matthäus know that he can invite those people at the end of that workshop, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe, yeah, I think your idea of like, if you probably need their like email address or whatever, but like we sent around a sheet saying, hey, we'd like to send out a summary, or sorry, a survey afterwards, you know, if you're okay with that, add your name here that'd be really handy.
Okay, good idea.
Okay.
So just to be clear on what my role is here, since I volunteered to lead this breakout session, like, I mean, I'm thinking about it as just like being able to set like the time frames within the breakout session. Sorry, Thomas said something.
Yeah, so I think what it is now is what we probably want, what I would say, feel free to shoot this down, is for those, the first set of bullets, right, the goals and the current initiatives, we probably want like a quick slide deck that somebody can go and talk through that and say, here's where we're at with tracing, here's where we're at with profiling, right, here's where we're at with deep memory analysis. You know, this is any progress that was made, this is where we're trying to get to, this is where you can help, maybe. I think for Michael's comment that it's like, can we get other people involved and excited? And hopefully that can go quickly, right?
Yep.
And then I think what we do is we then have time boxed working sessions, since we've identified two. And I think, you know, one can be postmortem with promises, and another can be the async terminology stuff. And I think that, and I'm happy to drive the async terminology stuff. We got a talk that got accepted for this on Wednesday on the async terminology stuff. So the deck that I've had in kind of like, you know, this mildly pro, actually it wasn't even mild, it was like, I don't know, the B League form is getting polished. And we're gonna present that on Wednesday sometime, I can't remember.
At Node Interactive?
at Node Interactive. Yeah.
Okay.
It's at 11:40, I want to say. And so what I can do there for the async terminology stuff is then just walk through that deck again and let people ask questions and be like, that's crazy, or I don't understand, or whatever it is, and just have more of an interactive conversation around it versus like a presentation or a talk, which I think is not a stretch from what I have to have prepped for Wednesday. But also, I think it's like if we can, and for time constraints, and I don't know if we want to break things in half, or split the group in two, or if we just want to say, hey, we're going to spend 30 minutes talking about this and 30 minutes talking about that, or if we think that there's more interest in the postmortem stuff and we want to give that more time or whatever it is. But Kelvin, do you want to try and just get a quick set of a few slides that sort of cover the summary of what do we want to do, where are we at, how can you help for the bullet points above?
Yeah, so I've written down I need to create a slide deck to talk about the current initiatives and the current state of diagnostics, just as an overview, and then hopefully that shouldn't be more than 15 minutes maybe, and then we can spend the rest of the time divide between talking about async terminology, where you'll be giving an abridged version of your presentation, and then Peter will be spearheading the postmortem part of it.
Perfect.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, so 211, so best practices guide. I need to get involved in this, and I haven't had the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we have a few people interested.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'd almost suggest is that after the conference, we might want to set a dedicated meeting just to focus on that, at least as a kickoff or something. Because I think what it could just use is sort of the high level view of what we want to write up, so that it would be easily and clear to say, we want these 6 guides, right? And then it's easier for people to say, okay, I'll go write the first cut of that guide. And even if we could basically say for this guide, in just a couple words, here's the tools we currently think are what we'd recommend, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because, for example, I'm going to get his name wrong, but Zybzek has done some work on flame graphs, and I'm sure he's, it sounds like he's interested. If we had another one that said, here's another one, he would also jump into that one, right? So I think just having that focused thing where we just try and put together the best first guess of what the best practices would look like and what areas to cover, we could enable other people to then jump into specific ones.
Okay.
Yeah. So this Girish, I was the person who signed up for the crash best practice guide. I guess after the Node.js Interactive, I would be able to spend some more time. And if you are planning to set up some dedicated meeting, I would like to join that and take part in that. Otherwise,
So
I'm also happy to come up with a first set of draft on the crash analysis. Either way, yeah.
I was just going to say, any chance you're willing to set up that meeting?
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Basically, open an issue saying, hey, this is what we're going to do in this meeting. If you're interested, let me know. And then, coordinate getting the people to the meeting. That would be really good.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
And I don't know, when, does that happen on Friday or Saturday when there's just an open slot on that collaborators calendar?
I actually meant after the conference.
Oh, so Sunday.
I meant after, just not tied to the conference at all.
Oh, just sometime after, like, just set a meeting up, and then like week we can all kind of perfect. Okay.
Yeah, like it's basically get together for an hour online.
Perfect.
At some point, just to talk about that, right? Because like these meetings, we have enough different things, and we're not really sort of coming with the headspace. I think if you just said this is the hour, people might think about it before we come. We hash something out. We'll probably have like a good enough to start working, and then we have volunteers, and we can say, well, we don't have volunteers for these, and you know.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, deep dive. So I've got this. I've been saying we're going to do one on the async context stuff, and so now I actually have this forcing function that I've got to go and get actually polish slides and like talk about. So maybe I'll schedule one of these as like a practice run for me. I don't know, like if people have, like the only time I can think that this would work would be Monday of next week, and I don't know if that's too soon or not. How does anybody feel about that?
Monday's a holiday in Canada, but I'm probably the only one in Canada, so it's our Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
So does that mean you wouldn't come?
No, I wouldn't come. Sorry.
Yeah, I won't be able to come as well because I will be in Canada celebrating Thanksgiving.
Huh.
You know what I would think is I would say we kick off the deep dive in the session you're going to do at the Collaborator Summit.
Yeah, maybe that's fair. I was hoping to get a practice run and get like
I know, yeah,
QA up and
yeah,
and out from a smaller and potentially more friendly audience maybe, but that's fine. Let's do that then. I'll plan on. We'll see what falls out of the stuff at the summit, and then I'll schedule some follow up there, and at least I'll have the deck as a collateral thing to drive conversation. So, and I don't know if there's anything else there for deep dives that are people are planning, but. Okay, tiers of support for diagnostic tools and VMs. What was the status here last week is that there were some things that we needed to start moving up in tiers. I think there was an open question about, was it clinic?
Yeah, there was a discussion on that one. I think in the end, it was agreed that, and the words aren't coming to me, but there's a specific API in Node itself we should do instead.
It's prof and prof process, and that we should properly support. And because that's what broke recently in Node Clinic. And I actually went ahead and also opened a PR to fix the Node internal tests that we have for the tick processor. It is a bit ugly because we tested on all the different systems and not on all systems, and we actually get a good data back. Nevertheless, I'm going to add more tests to it because, for example, one of the recent regressions we ran into would not have been detected by any of the existing tests, even if they would have been run on the CI regularly. So we definitely have to improve that.
Do we have issues open for the problems on other platforms?
No, not that I'm aware of. So the issues there is actually, for example, you personally, Michael, did some comments in those tests about the C++ functions being properly mapped. It has been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah, I know. I know we looked at that. That's why I was asking about platforms, because I know there might have been some issues quite a while back.
Yeah, so I tried to see if something became better in the meantime and removed all the skipping part first and ran it on all the systems. But it turns out it's still an issue on pretty much everything that you skipped. And also, I had to add a couple of fallbacks because it's not that easy to get it on some systems that we run our tests on.
Right. I'm just thinking that, like, if we're making these a priority, it would be probably good at this point to open, if we don't have an issue, maybe that covers those, to do that, or if there are issues, paste the links to them in that issue.
Mm-hmm. So if I understand correct, what you would like is pretty much a list of systems that it fails on.
Yes.
And then we might see what we could improve, so we actually improve the data output.
Exactly. So, like, if we've said that this prof and prof process flag is one of our key debugging tools, if, for example, it doesn't work on regular Linux, we should prioritize, publicizing that that's an area somebody could contribute in, right? If it just doesn't work on AIX, for example, then, I can maybe highlight internally that, well, this is becoming, seen as one of the key things. We're emphasizing one of the key things, what we should be doing something to make it work on the AIX platform.
It's more of the latter.
Right.
But it's maintained by V8 itself. We just use that feature from V8.
Right. But we can change things in V8 too.
That's correct, of course.
Yeah, and we have people who work on that. I just was thinking it's when we have partial testing, until we've got like, hey, this is good testing across the Node platforms, we should, if we're emphasizing and working on it, we should highlight where the gaps are, because then we can maybe line up something to help fix those. Or document it somewhere that says, but it doesn't, if you're going to do your debugging, do it on these platforms, because this is where we know it works.
Yeah.
So what was the other issue here with, I thought we were trying to get some of the profiling APIs moved up in the supported stack so that we wouldn't lose JavaScript call stacks. Like I thought Peter added, or Matthias added some hooks so that we could get stack frame information from JITted frames.
I just pasted the page. So there was a PR, and it did land to move a number of things to tier 3.
Okay.
Which is we'll run them if we can. And we see that we have like partial V8 CPU profiling tests. The question I'd have from that is like, okay, is that partial? To me, that sounds like, well, we've got some of what we want, but not what else. So we should probably make an issue somewhere that says, what's the something else we want to or think we should do?
So sorry, say that again. What's the action there for the profiling API?
I think the action is to document, what, since it says partial testing, what's the rest of the testing we want or need to put in place to basically say we've covered that. Because it says we've said it's target tier 1, so we got to think about, okay, what is it that we need to do to move it up in the tiers?
Okay.
And maybe it's, so yeah, first thing, understand what the partial, what we need to make a non-partial, and then we could look at it and say, okay, well, do we qualify for 2?
So is there whatever issue to track this, or is there an existing issue that's ongoing that's trying to move?
We can do it different ways. So I don't know if, we have the existing tiers issue, which is 157.
Yep.
We could choose to sort of paste next steps in there, or I think better would be to open a new issue that covers that and then have the link to it from that issue.
Okay.
I think one way could be that we come up with some use cases for the tiers, and we try to cover the use cases with the test. Then it would be close to the real world scenarios.
Yeah, driving from use cases is always definitely good. Now, whether we can get the full use case, but yeah, if we had those documented, then it's like, yeah, if we have this testing, could you break the use case without noticing? Would be a really good test.
Yeah. So if I remember, then this test that you were talking about that Mateus added for the code event listener API is basically only checking that if you use Linux perf, then you can find one specific frame inside the frame graph,
right,
which is obviously not very deep.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Right. So then the question would be, what more do we think is going to be good to cover those use cases?
Yes. Probably it's not very realistic to write a test that find any of those. I mean, find every frames there.
Yep.
So yeah, something which is more closer to the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, closer, or in some cases we've just got to say this is the best we can do, but having decided that one way or the other is important.
Okay,
yeah, agree.
You do this. I'll open an issue. I'll try and capture some of the stuff in that issue. This issue is specific to the profiling APIs, and how do we move that up in the thing? And I'll mention you folks, and then we can sort of party there on the specifics related to this.
Sounds good. Yeah. And just paste the link into that the other already open issue.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Anything else here? I think this is a good sort of testing thing to try and figure out the best process for moving these things up, right?
Yep.
The profiling APIs. Okay. So async hooks, the stable API tracking issue number 124. I think from the last time there was this question about I think it was Mateo's PR that sort of tries to address some of the perf issues with promise hooks. Ali, I think you were going to schedule a doodle on it. I don't know if that happened or not, but you were going to try and get the right people to sort of have a conversation and unstick that.
Right. So talking to Yang and trying to figure out people's calendars, it couldn't be done this week. There was something else Yang needed to pay attention to. So I think this would be a good opportunity, like at the Collaborator Summit, this would be a good topic to discuss. We definitely need to come to an agreement on what changes we actually want from it. And Yang is going to be there in person. And Mateo as well. So I propose this as a session at the summit.
Okay. So we should just get this on the agenda for the diagnostics breakout.
Yeah, I proposed this in the issue already.
Oh, you did. Perfect.
Do we just want to add it in? Like we could just edit. I can edit it as we speak.
That'd be awesome.
So let us say. Perfect. Okay, it's added.
Okay. Anything else here with async hooks that we want to talk about now? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, so async context, like I said, there's a talk, it had been waitlisted, and then last week they were like, you've been accepted. And so I agreed to do that. So it's a good forcing function. As this had sort of bubbled down on my stack. So I'll be at Summit, and this talk is like 11:40 on Wednesday. So hopefully some of these ideas are coalescing. And again, I think the goal there is to just get something in the form. I think the goal there is really to get feedback again from a broader audience, and particularly around terminology and around the next steps forward for something like this, and it's my belief that there's an avenue through TC39 to formalize some of this stuff at the spec level.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how that that is received as a as we talk about some of these things. Like I said, I'm open to feedback. So, but yeah, it's at the same time as your talk, Michael.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's too bad. More competition.
I know. Yeah. Maybe I'll skip my talk and go to yours.
Sure. vice versa, right?
Yeah. So that's that. The last one is the trace event tracking issue number 84.
I don't have any updates on that one other than I've been working on fixing some of the trace event issues, and there's a whole cascade of bugs that actually currently waiting on a thread initialization issue on Windows to be fixed. And once that is fixed, I am hopeful that trace events, some of the race conditions will be fixed. I still owe this working group a detailed write down of what are the concrete things that need to happen for trace event, and I haven't been able to do that yet.
Okay. Okay. That was the last thing on the agenda, I think. Anything else from anybody?
I'm good.
Okay. Then I guess we're done.
Okay, great. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
See you around.
Yeah.